the competition people have where like they put the Oreo in their eye and they're trying to move it down to their mouth. You know what I'm saying? With their muscles. You've never seen that?
Oreo?
You know what I'm talking about?
Rolling an Oreo?
Oreo. Like
cookie.
Yeah.
They
Like
roll
people,
it?
you put your face back, you put an Oreo in your eye, and you try to use just your facial muscles to get it into your mouth.
Never seen that.
Oh, it's like
I can't
very
picture
common.
that.
Maybe that's just my generation in school or something.
I am in your generation.
I mean,
you are the generation that eats Tide Pods, so really.
That's true.
Yeah, it's true. They're good though.
You've had a Tide Pod? No, Oreo. Okay. It's all right. Obviously, a new chapter, moving into Xfinity. How is this? I've always wanted to know when a driver moves up to a new series, what that opening weekend is like. And I bet you've had that feeling for a little bit now, but now you're here. So has the feeling? Was it what you expected coming in, or have you been surprised?
Well, I mean, to be completely honest with you, so far I've only made single car runs out here at Daytona where we're wide open, so I don't think it's really set in yet. I really think that next weekend in Atlanta is when it's going to be the biggest difference changing between a truck and a car and just the competition level in general. But I can say that just walking into this garage and being an Xfinity driver, it is definitely a noticeable step up, which has been really cool so far, and I'm gonna hopefully get in the swing of things and being able to be competitive and compete at this level here.
Does it feel like your first truck start, or is it so different?
Well, my first truck start was a little bit different because it was at Martinsville when I was too young to run at the big track. So I feel like when you're starting at Daytona versus when you're starting mid-season is a little bit different feeling. I can tell you at Martinsville I was absolutely terrified in the truck because all I'd done was K&N, and it's such a huge step up to get into the truck. So that was pretty nerve-wracking. But I got to say, this weekend I've been pretty relaxed and calm. But Daytona is a different animal. I can tell you when the green flag falls tomorrow, I don't know if calm is necessarily the word anyone's going to use to describe that race. So we'll just take it as it comes at us.
How are you preparing for the competition change?
Well, I've been working hard during the off season, trying to do my homework and work on my fitness and just overall become a better athlete, better driver. So I think that's important for me. It's a big step up physically and mentally, I guess you could say, from trucks to Xfinity. So I've just been working on those areas that I have control over. But like I said, I think next week in Atlanta, I'll be able to talk to you more about the actual competition change itself when we're all lifting in practice. That will change things a lot.
Yeah, I bet there's another question that might be better in Atlanta, but a lot more Cup drivers, obviously, in the Xfinity Series. You've known that for a little bit. Quite a few in trucks as well, but that's one of the big changes that a lot of drivers speak of in this series is how much they learn, but also how much maybe they lose because they're up there, getting the big spots. But someone like you, I bet you're going to be taking a lot of notes and perhaps talking to someone, like Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, who run so much Xfinity Series races.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, tomorrow there's I didn't count it, but there's quite a few Cup drivers in the race for tomorrow. So I'm sure the first half of the race I'll be able to pick up some tips and tricks just watching them ahead and seeing what they do with the air. You can always learn from them. But this series is a little bit different, the dynamic, than the truck series, simply because the trucks, you get a lot of different series regular winners because there's not as many Cup drivers coming down and competing in the trucks, whereas you look at most of the winners of the races last year in Xfinity, the vast majority were Cup regulars. So that changes the way your playoff grid looks a little bit and the way you lock into the playoffs. So that's something we'll definitely be thinking about and will affect our season in terms of how we approach the playoffs and trying to make them. But as far as each weekend individually, it doesn't matter if they're a Cup driver or Xfinity driver, your goal is still the same. You want to beat everyone else out there. So I don't think that'll really change how we operate much.
Yeah. I don't know if you're a car guy, but obviously a manufacturer change here for JGL, going from Toyota now to Ford for this year. Do you have any understanding of how that's going to affect the team? Obviously, you're also new to the team, so you're coming in at the same time. But do you feel, what the change is going to be like for the team with the new manufacturer?
I'm new to the team, but almost everyone on my team is also new to the team and a new manufacturer and a new alliance. There's a lot of new, and I can tell you they have really had their work cut out for them over the off season. It's been a huge undertaking, and I think honestly it will probably take about the first third of the season or so to get caught up on everything and get in the rhythm because I've got a crew chief coming from a Chevrolet camp, an engineer coming from Toyota. The team is new to Ford, so there's just a lot of new pieces going on. But I have no doubt that the Roush Alliance and the Ford switch will be the right move once we get our feet under ourselves.
Who have you leaned on most so far? Or if anyone, perhaps your crew chief, but anybody else maybe you've been leaning on most?
Yeah, I've of course talked to my crew chief a lot, and he's worked with a bunch of different guys, some really, really good veterans as well in his past. So he's given me some great advice. But I've talked a little bit to Jeff Burton as well heading into the season, and I'm pretty good friends with Todd Bodine. So, I mean, I've got plenty of veterans around me that I've spoken to before and tried to soak up everything that I can. But unlike last year in the trucks, I had Johnny Sauter as a teammate, so I could lean on him. Dylan and I are both pretty new to these Xfinity cars, so I think we're both kind of looking for a veteran in the series to get to know and talk to a little bit more.
Right. How did 2017 build you as a driver and as a person? I mean, you went through some tremendous gains, but also some massive blows. I mean, how did that settle with you?
Well, I definitely learned a lot last year, and I think a lot of it, honestly, is mental. That plays a huge role in this sport, and just how you are able to approach restarts and approach your racecraft itself. You have to really drive with a lot of confidence, and you have to sometimes put your truck or car in an uncomfortable spot because you can't just play it safe and expect to do well in this sport. So I did learn a lot in terms of my racecraft last year, and a lot of that was unnatural to me because coming from sports cars, there's a lot of give and take. Well, if you give anything in NASCAR, they just take. So you have to really walk a fine line of being out there and being aggressive and I guess being selfish to a certain extent. So I learned a lot of how they race last year in the truck, and I'm sure Xfinity will be the same style, but of course just even more experience and competition in this series.
Yeah, and the playoffs, you got to feel what that was like last year. So obviously it just got added to both these series just a couple years ago. So now you already have experience with the playoffs. So how much did that? Obviously, it's a whole new series, a lot of ups and downs to come. But how much did that really broaden your perspective on what it takes to go towards a championship?
I think it helped me a lot because Xfinity has a 7-race playoff format as well, which is what trucks had last year. So I've got a little bit of experience under my belt in terms of what it takes to compete at that level in the playoffs and how you need to approach that. We didn't make the first cut in the trucks, but honestly, based off of our points, that was just because we had a hiccup at Talladega where we got caught up in someone else's wreck. But points wise, we would have and should have been able to make it. So I definitely know what it's like to race in the playoffs, and that's something I'll be able to use this year if we're lucky to make it to the playoffs.
Yeah. How does last year's Daytona win still motivate you today, or does it?
Well, I mean, it was pretty fun, so I'd like to do that again.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy motivation there. Once you are able to get that feeling of a win and have that satisfaction, then of course you're going to be more motivated to get back there. You're hooked on it. So I think that's helped, and I think it's a huge confidence boost to be able to get a win and know that, you know what, I can compete at this level. I can beat all these guys. That's a huge mental factor that you have to race with that mentality every single lap of every race. And so I was able to accomplish that last year, and I'll carry that right over into this year. It's good to start off at Daytona.
Oh man, I can't imagine. So I bet you've taken notes of JGL, at least, since the announcement was made that you're joining, but there's so much new. Like, are there any expectations, or is obviously it's a building team to start, but now with new drivers, new this, new that, where's your mind at when you're approaching your first season and there's so many unknowns?
Yeah, I don't know if expectations is necessarily the right word. I think just goals. There's a lot of new, as I mentioned, and so I don't think we're really able to put any specific goals or expectations on ourselves right now. So once we get into the season and we see how our performance starts, I think from there we can put specific goals. But right now we're looking to finish the races, hopefully finish in the top 10 as many times as we can, and that should put ourselves in a good position points-wise to be able to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and final question, about tomorrow's race. What Daytona is like. You talked about just how crazy and wild it can get, and what is it like when you're approaching your first race at Daytona in a new series? Because as I said, you know what it's like, but there's so much different competition. The race is longer, stages. How do you approach it from a driver's perspective?
Well, I mean, I guess all I can say is you don't know what you don't know.
That's good.
I'm pretty calm going into the race tomorrow. I feel like I've done my homework and I'm prepared for it, so I'm not too concerned. But of course, once I do an Xfinity race on a plate track and potentially see how different it is than a truck, if it is, then maybe I'll know. Hey, I should have been a little bit more weird going into that
for
race.
Talladega.
Yeah, exactly. But no, for now, I'm feeling pretty good about our car. It felt really great in practice. We only ran by ourselves, but comparing to my truck by itself, it seemed really stable. So no complaints so far. Just optimistic going into tomorrow.
So you're not a pressure kind of guy?
No, I like to stay cool, calm, and collected.
Have you always been that way your whole career? Or is that something new?
Honestly, since I got to the truck series is where that started. K&N and before, I used to be a nervous wreck going into races. And then I guess I kind of got to the truck level and realized, like, all right, there are guys that are doing this for a living already in this series. And this has been my dream, is to make it to a national series. So if I'm being able to live my dream right now, why waste the time being nervous? Just be happy about it, because it's pretty cool to be able to get to do this for a living. So there's not much that I can complain about. Just enjoy the moment.
Absolutely. Love that attitude. Definitely appreciate your time. Best of luck this weekend.
Thank you very much.